The Legend of Zelda is one of the greatest video games of all time. Here's why. Well, the answer is of course multi-dimensional. The people who grew up with this game will say it's because it was the first of its kind to allow the player absolute freedom to explore. Now, if you say that to a Gen Z gamer who did not grow up with this game, they will react like so. Because when they compare the freedom that Legend of Zelda for NES provides to something along the lines of Breath of the Wild, yeah, they just simply cannot connect with that sort of viewpoint. Nay, they simply may not be able to understand. I mean, it's just one of those things where you had to be there to get it. You just had to be there, man. Here's the problem, buddy. I wasn't. I wasn't alive when this game came out, so I'm sorry I didn't initially grasp the magic this title exudes. Please forgive me. Straight up, I'm a mid-90s baby, so I wasn't the generation that was there for all the excitement behind Legend of Zelda. But by that same token, I'm also not young enough to be completely separated from that same vibe. I get it. I was there when Ocarina of Time was making waves. I know what that excitement feels like when this completely revolutionary gaming experience first arrives on the scene. It's completely otherworldly. But by today's standards, I think it's safe to say both Ocarina of Time and NES Zelda have been outclassed by a technical standpoint. So with hindsight, was that magic that we experienced with Ocarina of Time and what the generation before me had with NES Zelda real? Or was it fabricated by limited technological circumstances? Well, I'm here to tell you that that magic is very real. Because I, a 90s baby, got a chance to play through and beat in its entirety The Legend of Zelda for the NES. And I can tell you with the utmost confidence that this is easily one of the best video games ever made. For starters, yes, this game does provide you with absolute freedom to do whatever you want. You start out the game with no opening cutscene, just a little exposition and the clothes on your back. You walk into the neighboring cave where the old man delivers the iconic line that has transcended history for the last 40 years and will generate the dankest of memes for years to come. And then you just go. You pick a direction and you go and you see where it takes you. The map is completely open to you. There are no main pathways that are closed off, no special items or abilities you need to access certain areas. It's just you, your sword, and this big open world. I feel like the instinct of younger gamers is to bash the game for giving you absolutely no direction from the start. Shouldn't the game be at least giving me a tutorial or something? Shouldn't I be just handed a map on a silver platter? I also feel like gamers of this era have been spoiled with games that incorporate far too much hand-holding, far too much invasive treatment by the developers. I myself was a bit taken aback by The Legend of Zelda's open nature, and my first reaction to it was to get frustrated, naturally. I hated the fact that I could just wander into an area full of powerful enemies that could murk me in seconds due to my lack of weapons and power. I wanted to just categorize this as archaic and call it a day. Not to mention that you have no idea where the first dungeon is and are forced to deal with that. Like, was Nintendo at the time just trying to piss everyone off? But then it turns out, back when it first came out, the game actually came with a pretty helpful strategy guide. One that gives you a little direction to get you going, but doesn't flat out tell you exactly what to do. This right here is about as classic as it gets from gaming of this era. The internet was only in its infancy at the time, and not many people had it, so you couldn't just go and easily find a strategy guide online within minutes like you can now. Basically, this guide was the only thing people had to get anything close to a hint on how to progress in the game. And the rest had to be via word of mouth. Friends would play the game on their own and then come together to discuss their experiences, sharing tips and tricks with each other that were sometimes true and other times inaccurate. This created an air of mystery surrounding the game, make it appear to be a far grander adventure than it actually is in hindsight. Playing The Legend of Zelda in 2023, I don't need to tell you how tempting it was to look up a strategy guide telling me exactly what to do and where to go. But if I truly wanted the raw Legend of Zelda experience that gamers of that time got to have, if I wanted to capture that same magic from the before times, as hard as it was, I had to completely forbid myself from using any sort of guide that wasn't the one that came with the game. And with a game like this, that only exacerbated my frustrations. I felt so weak right off the bat, as all I had was this dinky little sword and 3 hearts to work with. The overworld enemies pulverized and ate me for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This motherfucker was everywhere and refused to leave me alone. My sword did barely any damage, so instead of trying to kill enemies for supplies, I was forced to avoid them. Due to this, rupees were few and far between, so I basically couldn't buy anything. You're essentially a sitting duck when you're starting out because unless you have that aforementioned strategy guide, you have absolutely no idea where to go. You have next to no health and basically no power whatsoever. The only reprieve I got from the hellhole that was the overworld were the first couple dungeons. At least in these situations, you're in a slightly more controlled environment with more structure, and the enemy situation is adjusted to suit the difficulty curve of the dungeons. But after those first 2 dungeons, you're on your own, my friend. Because while the official strategy guide does give you directions to dungeons 1 and 2 and provides you with a full map of each, it kicks you out of the nest and leaves you to fend for yourself after that. No more clues on where to go, just a bunch of unhelpful tips and overgeneralized riddles. And to tell you the truth, I did not handle this well. I let the anger of not knowing where to go overtake me, and it affected my view of this game. The biggest problem I had with it was how it felt like everything, and I mean everything in this game had to be a riddle, had to be a mystery. The old man and old woman are supposed to be there to help you out, give you clues on where to go, but every time they open their mouths they speak in tongue. There are these secret caves and bombable walls hidden around the map, but there's absolutely no indication of them anywhere. You basically are forced to stumble into them or just start bombing random walls and hope a secret path opens up for you. It just felt like the game was overdoing it with the whole figure things out on your own vibe it was going for. And I wanted so badly to just search for something online to tell me where to go so I could stop wanting to break my controller. But I knew I had to be diligent in not doing that because I realized the second I watched a YouTube video that explained to me step by step how to find the magic sword or how to make it through the Lost Woods, then that magic I mentioned from before would be gone. The mystery surrounding this game, the excitement of discovering things on your own, the growth that comes from forging ahead in the face of the unknown, all of that would dissipate. It would completely gut the very purpose of this game if I took the easy way out, and therefore, there would be no reason for me to continue playing. I'd be doing a disservice to all those players who as kids poured hours of themselves into this title and who to this day proclaim it to be not only a formative part of their childhoods, but also one of the best games ever. So I had to do it. I had to go back in time and put myself in their shoes and do this thing the right way, that being the hard way. I used the only tool I had at my disposal, that being the official strategy guide, and I played The Legend of Zelda like it was 1986. And despite the countless amount of times I died and ended up back here, or all the times I spent trying to figure out what I had to do to get this guy to give me that damn sword, or every time I ran out of bombs in a dungeon and had to leave to go get more because for whatever reason the enemies spawning in the dungeon wouldn't give me any. For that time I stumbled into this dude and had to figure out how to stop the grumbling. Anytime I was faced with a seemingly contrived challenge, I simply took a minute, recollected myself, and deferred to the strategy booklet. It didn't give me all the answers, but it was a start. And at the end of the day, a start is all I really need, because I used the few tools I had at my disposal, and I pressed on. And even though it didn't happen right away, eventually I saw progress. I saw myself slowly growing more powerful. I found more secrets, collected more heart containers, gained more powerful armor, and eventually those overworld enemies I once saw as a threat were now nothing more than cannon fodder for me to collect rupees. The process of finding secrets became less an anomaly and more a diligent quest of curiosity. The dungeons became less an obstacle for me to survive through and more one to conquer. And the prospect of defeating the evil wizard Ganon and saving Princess Zelda had become that much more enticing. That magic I keep mentioning, well, this is where you really start to see that. When you keep failing over and over again, and you leave and you come back stronger, and you keep fighting the obstacle in front of you until you finally overcome it, that is the magic right there, at least for me. Because when I defeated Ganon, saved Princess Zelda, and the credits rolled, and then that screen popped up stating I could have a go at the whole shebang a second time, well, firstly I set the controller down and said nope, because fuck that. But then I felt this strong sense of accomplishment overcome me, and in that moment, I knew that what I had just gone through was something truly special. It was an intense gaming experience that only a select few gamers of a bygone era have had the pleasure of experiencing. It's one that in this advanced age of the internet could never be replicated and will likely never be replicated again. I got to overcome that massive obstacle put in front of me, and I got to do it all on my own. So what makes The Legend of Zelda one of the greatest video games of all time? It's really quite simple. Not only is it a video game, It doubles as a life lesson. It teaches you patience, diligence, focus, determination, all these things you can learn by playing through it without modern luxuries like the internet. If you just go online and use some guide that gives you all the answers though, it will be a very hollow experience for you. The idea behind Legend of Zelda is that you're going on a quest of discovery. You're setting out on your own with nothing but yourself and the path forward. In real life, that can be a scary situation, but Legend of Zelda teaches you that with an open mind and a strong will, amazing things can happen for you if you stay the course. The reward on the other side will be far greater if you take the bad with the good and tough things out on your own to the very end. I want to make a shout out to the gamers in the generation that came before me for toughing out this masterpiece. I respect y'all for making it through this because it is no easy feat. And as for the younger gamers, I encourage you to give this a shot without using the internet. You'll thank me later, because it is so worth it. Thank you for watching, especially if you made it to the end. Hit the subscribe button so I can keep making more content like this. I'm Marky Mark signing off. Peace.